Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show on YouTube set in the Eberron campaign world. Philip says world, right? Man, Casey can attest. As soon as I hit record, I went, crap, how does he do the intro? And Philip's not here, and it's Friday. So clearly, me, just a humble fan of the show, not a cast member, wanted to step in and fill in for Philip. And we have Casey.
It's really nice to meet you.
Thank you. Yes. We have Casey, player of Shade, here for this Khyber Shards answer to discuss the latest episode, Trust and Secrets, I believe is the title. I edited it and uploaded it, so you would think I would remember. But, yeah. Hi, Casey.
Hi, Eric.
It's been a while. Off of the last couple episodes, I do want to ask, not necessarily Shade as a character, but Casey as a player, how much do you miss me? Just boilerplate, like.
What is the scale here?
Yeah. Anywhere from, you misplace your keys to Rose at the end of Titanic. I think that's a good, longing scale.
Missing keys are really important too.
That's fair. Yeah, you can't go anywhere without them. So,
True. I will say it's been really hard to figure out how to play. Like, as a person who loves stories, and I love dramatic irony. Everybody knows what's happening except for the characters themselves. Yeah. But figuring out how, as a player, I want to play my character doing that, and as a viewer, how I would want to see and experience that. I've struggled with how much to sort of troll that happening, because that's fun too.
Yeah.
And how much just to stay in character with it. And I've definitely leaned more towards the staying in character, but I'm just not a troll by nature.
Yes.
But it is fun.
And I do appreciate that about you. But I will say, after I knew what night you all were recording these episodes, and I hopped on before they were available to the public, because I have the passwords. And I watched the recordings, and I was like, I can't wait to see how they did. And by the end of it, kudos to you all, because it's like I was never even on this stupid show. What? So well done to all of you. But yeah, no, it's been fun to watch the group sans what's his face, and yeah. Well, we have some viewer questions, and then also I have some questions personally about the last episode and Shade and just kind of everything that's been going on. But I wanted to kick things off kind of with what we're talking about with the idea of dramatic irony, and as a player having a lot of information that your character doesn't have, and big reveals like we had a couple episodes ago when you all returned to the mansion. So as a player, obviously a DM can handle big twists like that in a couple of ways. One is to just keep you all completely in the dark and not give any hints, any indication that something big is going to happen. And Philip and I agreed we're going to wait until Ari, if Ari manages to meet back up with the group, to reveal the nature of how all of this happened and whether or not Philip surprised us with it and things like that. So without getting into how we actually did handle it, how as a player do you prefer to kind of be in that dramatic irony sense to where you can kind of feel the build up to it and have that excitement, or do you prefer as a player to just be blindsided with reveals like that?
I would like to choose option C, both.
Yeah, okay.
I get nervous about how to respond to big things like that. I often, when things are a surprise, I often go back and rethink, well, was that a player reaction or a character reaction?
Yeah.
But I also, and I'm getting better, but I also doubt my acting ability. And so I generally like surprises. I think that's fun in the moment to experience it. But it does definitely make me go back and think, did I play that the way I should have?
Yeah.
So generally I like surprises, but in real life, I like to know what to expect.
Yes, absolutely. No, my shower time is oftentimes riddled with just all of the things I could have done better in my D&D games. Like, it's just like thinking about, man, it would have been really cool if I would have said that at that point.
Right.
Yeah. And as a DM, it's like magnitude, like it's like, the planning was so bad. Yeah. So, anyway.
I worry about that DMing a game. Like, am I going to be able to, if I were to, would I be able to do stuff on the fly? Like, I just am so impressed with people who are able to do that and willing to. I mean, it definitely is impressive.
Well, and it's finding that balance, and I think this also applies to being a player, because obviously I have a notion, and you probably are the same way, have a notion of where you would like to see your character's story go, even in like an outline, like bones kind of thing. You may not have every bit of dialogue like me, who constantly thinks about these things planned out. But yeah, it's a question of how much do you just kind of sit back and let the game take you and take your character, versus how much agency do you try to exert over the story and that kind of thing. So, oh my God, it's like a horror movie.
Yes, Calcifer has decided to join.
Skitter across in the foreground. Well, and this actually one of the talking points that I had, because we've gotten a lot of shade movement in the past few episodes, I feel like.
Yeah.
In terms of her personal journey. And as a player, I guess, how do you, because I've kind of talked on one of these episodes with Philip about how I tend to try and shy away. Like, I'm one of the worst people when it comes to spotlighting my character. I'm like, no, do whatever else. I don't care. So as a player, like, how do you find that balance between moving your character's story versus the main story versus being a supporting character in the other players' stories? Like, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
It's so interesting that you asked that, because honestly, at the end of our last recording session, I told Colin, yes, Calcifer, we all know you're here. Thank you so much. I told Colin, I said, hey, I know RA will tell me, and I know Philip will tell me, but if I am dominating too much story time, too much story space, please step in, because it's a joint storytelling experience. And I am, I'm so nervous that I'm going to take over that. I really do enjoy playing Shade. I really love her interaction with the other character players. I, as a player, was thrilled to go to Thelanis, and so I know that my excitement in that could lean towards being selfish. And so I mean, I handle that by just asking people, is this okay? Am I being conscientious? Do you feel like it's not going well? And Colin was so very kind. His reaction was, well, the fact that you asked that lets me know that you probably won't. But I do think about that. I do worry about it.
Yeah.
It's part of being on a team.
Yeah, and I think plenty of people watching the show, and also you and I as players, have probably had experience. I know I certainly have. I won't speak for you, but I've had experience with those players that don't have that, either that sense of awareness, or they do and they just like their character to be the hero of the story, and always being the side character. I love Samwise. He's my favorite character of Tolkien's. But you know, sometimes you want to be the ding dang Aragorn, like, and so. So yeah. Well, did you? So another aspect of Shade in this past episode, you spent a lot of time talking to the heretofore unnamed child, and I was wondering because we've seen Shade in social interactions be. There's a bit of a spectrum when it comes to Shade when she's talking to people, ranging from wild card to hyper focused, and as a player. And also, I guess, Shade as a character, do you feel any additional pressure to err on the side of productivity versus your character's flaws when it comes to social interactions when it's just you? Like, if you're the only available person to gain information or make headway with an NPC, does that affect your play in any way?
Ooh.
Consciously.
I mean, right. I have definitely not thought in terms of that. It was interesting what you were saying about having an outline of where you want your character's story to go, because honestly, I try not to think about it. Yeah. I know that I will overthink it and then get in well, this is the way it has to go, and then have a hard time deviating when things don't line up. And so I try not to metagame too much, because it's so easy for me to slip out of character and into player.
Yeah.
So I probably do, though. I probably absolutely do think, okay, well, my character is the one interacting with this person, this source of knowledge, and this is what we need out of it. So interesting question. I just haven't consciously thought about that, but I bet it impacts the way that I interact with that NPC.
Well, and it's interesting because our party normally we're able to like pair off, like two people go do one thing, two people go do another. So you have that dynamic of being able to play off of someone else. And this is the first time in a while. I know we used to like splinter off, and like Philip had to manage 4 storylines going on at the same time, poor guy. But this is the first time in a while where like one player has had to kind of steer an entire thing. So I was just interested about that. And you also have the added pressure of you're literally the only one who can talk to her from a language barrier standpoint, which, just even when everyone else is there, it's just like, well, tell her this. And then, so. I
know. And wanting to make sure that everybody's included and a part of that too.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be the Shade show, and I don't want to be the cornerstone of that. Everybody else's interactions are just such gold. I mean, the way that all of y'all play the characters, it would be a loss to be too Shade centric and to and for me to not be careful about reeling in the other characters.
Yeah. Well, and I saw an interesting take on this balancing thing, and I've dove too deep into the examination of it, so it might be totally off base, but I thought it was an interesting concept where your character's spotlight moments, just from I'm not speaking to Casey the person, just right. the general you. Your character's spotlight moments are an opportunity to highlight your character's flaws, whereas your character's supporting moments are an opportunity to highlight their strengths. Like highlighting the strengths to support the other players, and then when it's your turn to have the spotlight, that's when you get to rely on the others and progress your story through flaws and struggles and things. And I thought that was a really
interesting.
You
were really upset about it.
Yeah. But I thought that was a really interesting concept from like a table dynamic thing of, when the spotlight is on Ari, just using that opportunity to highlight the things that suck about Ari is what I was initially going to say. The things he struggles with. Because that gives the other players something to do, because then they're truly the supporting roles. So just an interesting thought.
That is interesting. And I wonder if I went back and thought about it, if that would be true, because I do pick these core characteristics of a character and then try to lean into that when they have the spotlight moments to play those up. And usually, like, for Shade, that is her fear of abandonment. Mm-hmm. And so in some ways that has looked like she's becoming more charismatic because she's reeling people back and trying to pull them together, but it's really out of her fears, out of her insecurities. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. What else do I have for you? When Shade and the girl, because don't have another thing to call her right now, we're talking about there not being stories in the material plane, and her kind of through Philip prodding Shade into, well, what happens when your story ends, and getting into this very existential ground. How much of the let's go talk to Arlo was Casey versus Shade? Like, which part of you was more desperate to get out of that conversation?
Definitely Shade.
Okay.
Definitely Shade.
Because I know as a player, I would be like, no, I don't want, no. I'm not equipped to have this conversation.
Yes, the moment he was like, well, maybe your story hasn't ended, that one gave me pause. That one definitely. Casey, the player, was like, what if my story hasn't ended? Like, right.
I mean, my life certainly feels like a first draft at times, but, you know.
Right. But Shade has not had many philosophical, existential considerations. Like her life has been about survival, and you do what's in front of you, and that is all it is. And so this very interesting conversation brought up by this amazing character. Shade was fully ill-equipped to handle that. And also is kind of questioning now, being of the Forest Queen. Is she in a story? And
well, that was a wonderful moment of, let's go talk to Esri, Arlo. Let's go talk to Arlo. Like, it's just, who can I pawn this conversation off onto?
That's that's definitely what it was. Now that we're talking about that, I remember that moment of Shade, the view that she has of the Forest Queen, of always protecting her, of always providing for her, is actually kind of starting to be challenged. They went into the Feywild, which is where the Forest Queen dwells. In Shade's mind, obviously the Forest Queen was going to find them, deliver them, take them where they want to go.
Be there waiting to greet Shade as she returned. Yeah.
Right. And that's not what happened. And there's this young girl who's experiencing a story of just trauma and tragedy. And that doesn't align with who Shade views the Forest Queen as. And so that moment where she's starting to challenge her even more, it's not a challenge if you just ignore it.
Yeah. That's a problem for future Shade. That girl can deal with it. Also, thoughts on Thora and Dane having a secret conversation about the party behind their backs and like their future and the intentions with them and stuff. How did you as a player and Shade as a character feel about that?
As a player, I want to know. I want to know so badly.
Yeah.
What that was a reference to. It took all of my willpower to just not insert Shade into that conversation. Excuse me?
Hello.
Oh no, that stuck in the back of my mind the rest of that episode, and then we recorded the one after that, so the rest of that episode, I am so curious.
Yeah.
But again, Shade has a person in authority that she trusts, and now that is being put into question, and her defense mechanism is to run away. Like,
Yeah.
surely we just don't understand. Shade would like to know more information, but also fears what that information will be.
If only Shade had had somebody in her past that reassured her of the familial nature of the group and how they would stick. At least one person would always stick with. If only Shade had that, but such is life.
I wish she did. Yeah.
Be a good support system. Okay. We also have some questions from our wonderful viewers. And we will get into those questions for both of us. We can kind of ping pong these back and forth. So first off, More Than Amia, who hosts the watch parties on her Discord, the link to which you can find in our Discord, the link to which you can find down below. So if you feel like going on that journey, do it. We love seeing people in the watch parties. Casey, did you answer to Esri's question about who was more powerful just to mess with RA? His reaction was great because he clearly wasn't expecting that answer.
It was not me. It was totally Shade. His reaction was so good. I actually was surprised at his surprise.
Yeah.
Shade's insecurity and emotional dependence on everybody is well documented.
Mm-hmm. And she also followed up your response as to why was also great. I'm wondering if you came up with that on the fly as well.
I did.
Yeah.
I totally came up with that on the fly. And
well done.
Thank you for those compliments. That makes me feel very good. But I did. Yeah. And I feel like I'm better at that spontaneous character reaction, I think is where some of Shade's better moments come from, rather than when I'm like, ooh, this is what she would have done, just because I can't play it off as spontaneous.
Fair enough.
And she has a question for you, Eric. How's it going with Puzzle Dust?
Who?
I was also wondering what this was in reference to.
Ari and Puzzle Dust, things started off great, then they cooled off, and we'll just have to see if we ever get to see what's going on with Ari and Puzzle Dust. I'm being intentionally obtuse. Philip and I have recorded something, and it was wonderfully delightful to play one-on-one D&D. Boy, you want to talk about a lot of pressure to like not screw anything up and like be productive.
Oh my goodness!
If it's just you running the whole thing, whoa! I really goofed it up a couple times. There are a couple moments, if you watch carefully, where it was clear Philip was like, "Okay, Eric, let me take your hand, and here we go. We're moving this way," and I'm just like, "Okay."
But honestly, any interaction with Ari and Puzzle Dust, like I would watch that 3-hour show. Like that sounds amazing.
Well, you will get not 3 hours, but you will get some time. So, Casey from I'm Spartacus, how have you enjoyed Shade becoming more of a face for at least the Lost Princess? Do you think this is out of necessity, or will she revert to being the younger sibling with Pog, or is this growth? Would Shade consider that growth? Or is it just that we get to see it on camera since she has always talked while leading jungle cruises?
These are really good questions. And I think you absolutely, with these questions, captured so many aspects of Shade that I was attempting to play. So Thank you. I think that it is mostly out of necessity, but also the empathy she feels for the girl. She has a strong connection to this young woman and wants to take care of her in a way that she wasn't taken care of. And this is that opportunity. We've been talking about our characters possibly being teachers, and Ari has given her some feedback on how to be a teacher. And this is kind of that first opportunity of teaching someone that she really wants to do well. She really wants to help this girl. And so part of it is necessity. Part of it is also her seeking of power. If more people see her and appreciate her and she has value to add, helping people control their powers, teaching someone, part of the appeal of her being the only one to be able to speak to the girl because she's the only one that speaks that language is, I fill a role now. Shade is purposeful. But you're right. She also is often leading jungle cruises. I don't think she's as personable on those as she is with the little girl because she could not care less about the people that she's leading through the jungle. She's glad to be in the jungle. She doesn't care about the people who paid her, but she does really care about this person.
I do think that you played well kind of the weight of responsibility of Shade, and there were great moments where it was clear that Shade was having the impulse to kind of revert back to who she had been early on in the campaign, but was fighting against that for the sake of the young woman that she has kind of unintentionally become Shade's ward almost through circumstance.
Right.
And so I think you did play that really, really well. So good job.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Eric, is Ari's arc going to be one-on-one, or will the others be temporary NPCs like during Pog's gladiatorial debut?
It is going to be a one-on-one affair because there's a lot of aspects of it that I'm kind of excited. Obviously, you as players will presumably watch it when it airs, but I don't know if it's going to... I don't know if we're going to release that before Ari meets back up or what the plan is on Philip's end. So it's going to be kind of interesting for Ari and Eric as a player to just be this like well of information of like, here's what happened. Holy crap. Shade, we got a lot to talk about when it comes to the Feywild stuff. Because
I'm so curious.
So yeah, it will just be a me thing. So, which we already kind of touched on. Sorry, I'm Spartacus. If I were a better host of this, I would have read all the questions and then integrated things as we went, but I'm not. So,
you're doing great. You're doing great.
Thank you. Casey, do you think Cal would be good at spying on Thora, or do you think Shade might be overestimating his abilities? Yes, I think is that just both.
Shade is confident that Cal can do anything, okay?
I imagine like everybody agreeing, yeah, in like a jungle setting, sure. And Shade's just like, nope, middle of the city. He'd be great. Just bounding from building to building.
Absolutely correct. In Shade's mind, Cal can do no wrong. In fact, there was a moment, I know sometimes we play off that our wild critters that wander around are Cal, and there was one time where I responded negatively towards my kitty cat and was like, not now, Cal. And I regretted that so much later. I was like, Shade would never.
Outstanding. Before we move on to the next question for me, though, I remembered something that I wanted to say in relation to I'm Spartacus' last question with Shade talking about, or you talking about Shade's desire for power, which, like, I think is it makes the most sense, but was so out of left field for both Ari and Eric when Shade started talking about a desire for, like infrastructural bureaucratic power to wield over her enemies. And there was some moment in one of the episodes, it may have been the protesters or something, where you as Shade said, but then if we get power, we can be the ones threatening them. And I envisioned it being like the boardroom meeting where one person says something, everybody gets quiet and just turns in their chairs and looks at the person like, excuse me? That was Ari's moment of like, what? So I love that aspect of Shade because it's something that I never would have. If you gave me the initial concept of Shade and I was in control of that character, I never would have taken it there, and it makes so much sense for it to go there. So, yeah, I didn't want the episode to go by without touching on that because
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. She would be terrible with bureaucratic power. Like,
She would be a tyrant. I mean, like...
This is her villain origin story.
Yeah. Shade becomes the big bad of the campaign. But she would be so nice about it. Like, she would... Or so matter of fact. Maybe not nice, but just like,
right.
This is what happens. It's like, okay.
These are the rules.
That would be a fun... Us being so X-Men inspired, it would be hilarious to see the state of the Academy if Thor were to die, and like a one-shot of each PC assuming the mantle of head of the Academy. And like Shades would absolutely be like the Age of Apocalypse dystopian, like with an iron fist.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway.
Gosh, she would be terrible. She would have favorites.
She would be like it. She would be fair about it in her mind. Like, it wouldn't be
right.
Like arbitrary tyrant, but you know.
Yeah.
If you were on the right side, you would have a great time. Unfortunately, there's like, I think maybe right now 2 to 4 people that are on the right side of that regime. So anyway, Emily AW asked that question. Apologies for not crediting the source of the Cal question.
And so her question for you was, have you been there to watch the sessions without Ari while they're being recorded, or have you stayed off those video calls? Which we did sort of already talk about, but
yeah,
wanted to specifically call out the question.
I've been incognito. I've not been around to witness the chaos that is life without Ari for everyone and how much they miss him. Honestly, I kind of prefer it that way because I feel like if I was sitting there the whole time, there would be more unintentional pressure on you all to like play into Ari being gone. Whereas with the way you all played it, it's very convincing that just he's gone. Nobody remembers him. There's no like it's such a stark difference, and I think it works really well that way. Whereas, like, if this were a home game and we were, like, meeting every week or every other week and I was at the table and, like, Philip was cutting to what Ari's up to, there would be that pressure back and forth to kind of acknowledge each other.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I kind of like it this way, I guess. So, yeah.
It is easier to play that you're not there when you aren't there.
When I'm not there. Yes, exactly. That's deep. That's truth
Mad
bombs
acting
with
skills.
Casey.
I will state the obvious for the rest of this episode. Thank you.
Well, Laura, they have a question for you. I got to answer this one last time. Casey, what story would you want to be read into?
Well, I saw this question right as we were starting to record, and so have not thought about this at all. I'm so sorry, Laura. I'm so sorry. I wish
it was asked shortly before we started recording, so you don't need to bear any of the guilt on that front. So,
but they asked you too. I could have been thinking about this for weeks, and I didn't. Casey rather than Shade. I want a happy feel-good story. I want one where there is some magic, which would be fun, but also everything turns out fine.
Yeah, Casey and I did not spend the first 20 minutes of this video call talking about our current feelings on the state of the world and how bummed we are. So wanting a happy story makes total sense. I think I said something similar, just, you know, something where things work out, justice exists. That would be cool.
Yes.
And then Nathan Stoller asks, given the party composition, I think the Strike Force could really use a 4th member, maybe an arcane spellcaster. Any chance of another character joining the party? Never.
Probably not, yeah.
These 3 are too tight. You know, it would be hard to inject a 4th person into this dynamic. I don't even know where a 4th person would even fit from a dynamic standpoint. Right. I feel like you all have everything pretty well filled.
Shade now trusts her maximum number of trustees, so
Yeah, and an additional person would just be an outsider 100% of the time. But anyway, that is all of the questions that we have. And this has been fun. Just chatting about
fun.
Characters without that stinky DM here to arbitrate things. So,
or to try to pry information from.
Yes. Taking notes about everything that we say. Like, there were like 3 things I said during my last KSA that Philip threw back in my face once we got to the table and started playing.
Oh, no.
It's like, Philip. So, anyway, Casey, this has been a delight chatting with you.
Has been very fun.
And getting to just, do a video call. It's been a while since, we've done this. So
it has been a while.
But hopefully we'll get to do it again soon. But thank you all so much for watching. If you want to be part of the conversation surrounding the show, we have a Discord, the link to which is down below. We also have a Twitter down below at Khyber Shards that Philip posts to with fun little tidbits in between episodes. And if you want to know when episodes come out, the best way is to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. But if for some reason you don't want to do that, you can head over to Twitter and he announces it there too. So, yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you all so much for watching. Casey, it's been fun. And we will see you all on... Well, I won't be there, but enjoy the show on Monday, I guess. Bye.